All right, let's look at our Monday assignment. It's in week 7 on Monday and Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday folder, it's the last thing in the folder. It's called DME Deceptive Data Part 4. So let's go ahead and open that up. You are in the assignment. It says to watch the video, which you are doing. Download the graph into your Keynote and make some edits in that slideshow. So I'm going to open up the attachments and click on cherry picking open in Keynote. So right now this is just going to show me my Keynote, and I'm going to use this button up here in the top right hand corner, and I'm looking for the option to open in Keynote. If you don't have that, you can click Save to Files or just Keynote. One of those two things should work. Okay, so it finally opened. Remember, you'll use the Edit button to change things in your file, but just to take a look real quick, we have 6 slides. On each slide, there's something that you need to do. Sometimes you're going to be changing a graph. Sometimes you're going to be answering some questions, so pay close attention. I did try to put this little icon down here with the paper and pencil so that you know that you might have some questions to answer. So let's start on task 1. We're going to be looking for cherry picking, and we're looking at this graph, which I got from Fox News, about unemployment under President Obama. So let's look closely at this graph. We're looking at the vertical axis and the horizontal axis, so the X on the bottom and the Y along the side. And we're looking at data from 2011 from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about who was unemployed in the United States under President Obama. The questions that I want you to be looking at are, is the scale distorted? And I'm looking at the scale both on the vertical here on the y-axis and the horizontal on the x-axis. Was there any reason that the graph didn't start at 0? Did you notice over here that these seem to be the same? What happened to December? It's missing. And is there a significant difference in unemployment? What does that mean? So take a moment. Edit the graph by clicking on edit the slideshow and tapping in here, and you can add your answers. It would be nice if your answers are obvious, so maybe change the color of the font or change the font so that I know what you're thinking. So pause right now and write your answers. All right, so for the next slide, let's go into the next one here. We're looking at changing it. So what I did is I took that graph and I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and I found the data, and I went ahead and created a graph for you using the unemployment data for 2011. And I went ahead and changed it so that instead of this original graph, which goes from 8 to 10, I changed it to 8.4 to 9.10, and it already looks very different. I want you to edit this graph so that the y-axis, the vertical, which is the up and down right here, starts at 0. So I want this bottom number to be 0. And the way we do that is by turning on the graph. So tap it to select it. You'll know it's turned on because the blue dots are on. And then go into the format. And you're going to be looking at the data. So go into the X or the Y-axis scale, click on where it says linear, and in the minimum, make that be 0. So go ahead and do that right now. And then at the bottom, I want you to answer these questions. Is there a trend? What do you notice? And why do you think we're only looking at 1 year? What purpose does that serve? So pause and do those things right now. All right, now that you've made those changes, I want you to add some data from 2010. So on slide 3, you're going to have to edit the data, and you're going to use the information from this slide. And so you're not adding a new line, you're just extending the line, right? So you're going to edit the graph, and you're going to add new columns for January 2010 through December 2010. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to turn on my graph, edit data, and notice I have January 2011. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add January 2010 and then February 2010, right? Keep adding and then add your data in underneath. So you'll have to use those numbers. So take a minute to add your months and then your dates, and you might have to move things. So remember, you can select the whole column by clicking on the little tiny black rectangle above the month, and then I can tap on it again, and I could cut it, and I could come over here and insert it. So maybe I'll do that. January 2010, insert February 2010, so that they're in order. So I'm going to add January through December of 2010, and then I'm going to go ahead and add my numbers, the percentage. Okay, so pause and do that right now. Once you've done that, don't forget you need to make this be 0 again. So remember, you turn on your graph, go into the data menu up here, click on linear, change the minimum to 0, get out, and that should change what that looks like. And make sure you add your January, right? It might be that there's too much to add in there, so if we turn on our graph and go into style, we can maybe, instead of saying auto fit, let's say do custom intervals, and we can say maybe I want every 12, or maybe I want every 2, but you can mess with it to see if you can make it fit. All right, so when you're finished with that, make sure you answer the questions. All right, pause and do that right now. Okay, task number 3. Remember, sometimes the context is super important. So we're going to zoom way out because it might be that just looking at the unemployment rate for just 2010 and 2011 doesn't even really tell us a lot about what happened under President Obama and whether or not he's actually responsible for the unemployment rates changing, whether it's positive or negative. So we're going to zoom way out and we're going to look from 2007 to 2012. And I went ahead and did that. I created this graph. I went and got the data, and I added it for you. So if you look here, in 2007, our unemployment was right at, just right underneath 4%, or right above 4%. And then something happened here that made it go whoop, all the way up here to like 10%, right? And then you'll start to see that it starts to drop and drop and drop, okay? So look at this graph. And then look at the questions here. The questions are, what was the original title of the graph that Fox News published? And you can go back up to graph or slide number 1 to find out. Why do you think that they changed that name there? What was the purpose of that name, and what are they trying to accomplish? And then, do you really think that President Obama was responsible for the high employment rate, or was it part of something else? And do you see this yellow bit? This is a 2-year period from 2008 to 2010. That's when we had the subprime mortgage crisis. And you probably don't remember that because you were super itty bitty. But a lot of people lost their homes and lost their jobs because there was this terrible thing that happened in the economy. And it was a pretty big deal. And that was not necessarily President Obama's fault. So if you look here, was he responsible for unemployment? Or was it because of something else? So go ahead and pause here and write your answer.